Great, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And I always like to start this talk off by reminding people that the real measure of gender equality is not about having the next female Steve Jobs or the next female Elon Musk, but it's really about having lots and lots of female middle managers who are mediocre. And that's my excuse. So in the true interest of promoting gender diversity in the talks at Eclipse, I'm going to give a mediocre talk, right? Okay, no, it's going to be amazing. So we're talking about the 7 habits of highly diverse communities. And one of the reasons for this is that tech is really transforming everything. We have software being used in every industry today, whether it's things like insurance or even in governments. And hang on. Okay, let's stick on that one. Okay, so these are the driverless pods you have at Heathrow. So this is part of this whole idea of the Internet of Things, and everything's going to be connected, and everything is going to be run by software. And it's not just driverless pods we have at Heathrow. In Amsterdam, they have driverless boats. In cities like Moscow, they'll have all their snowplows connected up, and they can all be operated remotely. So the point is that IoT technology, software is changing everything and the way we do it. It's changing, how we get to work. It's changing how we cut our lawns. It's even changing how we play with our children. So I guess the question I pose to you is, how do we make sure that when we're developing these systems, we're not just doing it for the elite, we're not just doing it for the privileged, we're not just designing it for the rich? And there's a cautionary tale from other industries. So there's this amazing TED talk by Keolu Fox where he talks about the human genome study and how essentially in genetics 96% of the genes they use are all of European descent. And this kind of affects everything from medical research to understanding how people react to drugs. And it's really quite shocking that you've got a whole industry that's just gotten into this very non-diverse state that's not good for the world. So we can't do anything about genetics research, but everyone here at this conference and in this room can do something in the technology sector. So I've been working in tech for over 10 years, and I'm sad to say that in that time, the makeup of the people who are building technology has not really changed. It hasn't really sort of evolved over that time. And the question you have to ask ourselves is, well, how do we change these perceptions? And how do we gain critical mass? Now, one thing that has been shown to really work is actually diversity champions. So I'm going to ask you, who here considers themselves a diversity champion for their community? Right? Nobody. Okay, well, here's the thing. So this is what we're going to do. I'm going to anoint you all as diversity champions for your community. So I'd like you all, from this moment forward, to consider yourselves the champions, not just in the Eclipse community, but for where you work, for the institutions you're part of, and even for your virtual communities, whether, Stack Overflow, you can be a diversity champion for a Slack channel even. And if you are a diversity champion, then what does that actually mean? And what can you do to go back to your communities and make a difference? So the whole idea behind these 7 habits is that it's a framework for sustaining diverse communities. So it's not a prescription of saying, well, you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to do the other. But it's much more about having the right mindset of saying, well, these are the principles that we're going to apply. And the whole idea behind this is that the more we can constantly have these principles and work towards them, then the more diverse our tech communities become, and as a result, the more secure and resilient our societies will be. And did anyone enjoy the keynote this morning? Yeah, they're really good. I like his takeaway there where he said, I like diversity because it just works. So, okay, let's get into the habits then. So habit number 1 is be self-aware. So this applies to our communities. So ask yourself, who's in your community? And secondly, who's not part of our communities? And how do the communities in tech reflect the societies in which we live in? And part of self-awareness is about checking our privileges. So what is it that has enabled us to get to the position we're in? And is that something that everybody has access to? And this idea of privilege, I think, is an important thing, and is something we'll come back to later in the presentation. But if you don't sort of have that self-awareness, and if you don't check those privileges, you can get into situations where you have communities which start to get, well, for want of a better word, really toxic. So I'm going to say Facebook has a diversity problem. At the Menlo Park headquarters, they have 5,500 employees, most of whom are men. But in particular, they have just 81 employees who are black, which is less than 2%. And earlier this year, Mark Zuckerberg called in all the employees, and he basically had to reprimand them because some employees had been defacing slogans around campus which represented the Black Lives Matter campaign. So most of these, so the people who were doing it were clearly in a privileged position, and they saw the slogan for this rights movement in the US as only Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter more. And there's a real lack of empathy when you get into a situation like that where you can't even appreciate the problems that perhaps other people are having to deal with, but they're still kind of attacking the message that's out there. So how do we prevent our societies from getting into a situation like this? Well, that leads us to habit number 2, which is to promote shared values. So I have 2 kids, kids in car seats as I call them, although sometimes I will let them out of their car seats as well, not for very long. And they go to a school, and the school has a program, and it's called Valuesled Education. Now, I didn't really pay much attention to what this meant, except that it really sort of hit home one day. And what had happened was we were trying to get ready to go for a wedding, and everything was running late, and I started to get pretty impatient with them and just started yelling at them to hurry up, to get the shoes on, get the jacket on, so we could get out of the door. And my, at the time, 5-year-old, he sort of, in the middle of this, he turned to me and he goes, "Mummy, you're not showing the value of patience." So that kind of stopped me in my tracks because, well, 1, he was right, and 2, I was really surprised at the vocabulary he was using and the fact that he could sort of identify that and call me out in it. And the reason sort of came down to this whole idea they did at their school, where every month they would focus on a value. So like this month's, the value is tolerance, and they managed to weave it throughout their curriculum in a very non-preachy way. So the kids are really on board with it, and they'll say things to each other like, "Oh, don't give up, show the value of determination." And even better, sometimes they'll call their teachers out and tell them, "Oh yeah, you're not showing the value of patience." And that's even better than when they're calling me out. So I like that. So I got to thinking, well, how can we translate this idea into our tech communities? Because for a long time, we've just seen tech communities as all about the tech. And we forget that it's built by people, and people come with all their baggage. And I'm glad to say we have started doing this to a certain extent. So we do, these days in communities, promote respect, and all Eclipse cons have a code of conduct. But on top of that, we've gone one step further, and we have a general community code of conduct, which I'm happy to say is, promoted and most importantly enforced. So this is kind of saying this is what we stand for, this is what we all share and believe, respect. And I'd almost like to challenge ourselves to say, how can we extend this idea to other things like empathy and tolerance and just other values that we say, well, this is what we as a community stand for. Okay, habit 3 is learn and grow together. So many things evolve and we understand better, even things we might take for granted like gender. We now understand, it's not a simple black and white thing. So it's important that we as communities do learn and we do progress together. And habit 4 is about being open and inclusive, where openness is real transparency and inclusiveness is, inclusive at every level, and that people can progress at every level of the community or for a job. Okay, so taking those 2 habits of learning and growing together, I thought we could learn and grow together. And being open and inclusive, I thought we could open it up to include some of you in this. So who likes games? Yeah. That's good, and all the rest of you are going to have to learn to like it or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a quick game. And the game is based on this idea that there's a university professor and he was trying to teach his class about privilege, and he used a waste paper basket and some scrumpled up paper. So I'll explain what the game is. But I thought, we're a tech conference, we can go one better. So I had these great plans and kind of put together how I was going to make this smart privilege bucket, which you program in JavaScript, updates things onto the cloud over MQTT, has some sensors and actuators. So I'm working on it. But we do have the privilege bucket with sensors and LEDs and, most importantly, stickers. So we're going to get that out and I'll explain what we're going to do. So here's how the game is going to work. I'm going to get a few people over here in the front, and Alex is going to pick about 3 people in her row. You're each going to get, the lucky people are going to get a couple of balls, and all they have to do is get one of the balls in the bucket, and that's going to entitle them to something great. In fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change the way every decision is made at Eclipse. So anyone who gets a ball in the bucket is now going to be a committer and gets to decide the future of Eclipse. Anyone who doesn't, well, doesn't, right? So that's how it's going to be. Right, so Alex, if you can pick 3 people, and I'm going to... But the catch is, you have to stay in your seat, right? So that's your station in life, that's what's been assigned to you. So, and we're going to leave the bucket over here. Well, that's where the bucket lives. So can I get you catch those? Sorry, can I give you 2? And I'll give you. Right, you can have 1 too. Okay, so let's see if the tech's cooperating. The tech is just for fun, by the way, just so we have to have flashing LEDs. Okay, So I'm going to get everyone with the red ball to have a go first, starting over here, Torkild. So Torkild, are you going to be... Yep. Well done. Next. Oh, better luck on the second one. Do you want to... Yay. Ooh. Yay, well done. We've got three people deciding our future at Eclipse. Oh, not quite lucky enough. Okay, first of all, I'm going to warn everybody, they are going to be projectiles flying, so I take no risk and responsibility. But can we have the folks with the orange balls have a go? So we'll start over there. Oh, not quite, sorry, can't be a committer. Yep, next. You can stand up, just stay in your area. Oh, no. Yeah. Close. Have we got any more? Yeah, Kat, go ahead. Oh, there we go. Oh. All right. So I'm sorry to say that, well, where's my clicker? So we've got a few people who got them in, and we're going to go, the next habit is to give everyone a voice. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask everyone who threw a ball to come up. If you got your ball in the bucket, stand on this side, and if you didn't, stand on that side. And I'm going to be a pain, but please do come up. So, so yeah, if you're our new committers and going to decide everything for the community on this side, and if you didn't get it, you're going to stand on that side. And let's see if we can use this. Sorry? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so first of all, let's give a hand for our new committer masters. Yeah. And we're going to ask them a few questions because we really like to hear from winners and people who do well. So, was that really difficult for you?
The most difficult task of my life.
Right. But I see you put a real lot of effort into it.
Yes.
Okay. And what about you? You seem to have a really great technique there.
Yeah, you have to be in the right position, I think. So it's all about placement.
No, it's all about the lifetime training you had.
And do you have any advice for people who want to get to your situation?
Yeah, get a good position.
And would any of you consider writing a book maybe about how you got to where you are?
Yeah. It could be interesting.
Okay, that's good. Right. Okay, we wouldn't normally talk to people who haven't succeeded, but we're going to make an exception in this case. So, what's your excuse for just not really doing well in that?
I think I maybe had missing something. Something I didn't catch at the start. I didn't learn enough, not enough background knowledge. Maybe it's just a little bit too far away from the bucket.
So you're complaining about the distance?
Yeah, well, the balls weren't that good.
Okay, so none of our people who did really well moaned about anything. I don't know if you noticed that, so
Yeah, that's true.
let's try someone else. What do you think went wrong for you?
Maybe the distance, and also I think the technique, maybe. I don't know.
Do you think there's anything you could have done to do it better next time?
Better depth perception.
Probably, yeah.
What about you? Anything to say?
I think my problem was that I'm female.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I can't play with balls.
Yeah, I know. I noticed as well, everyone with orange balls just is no good at this, so it must be something about the orange ball. Anything to...
I was completely unprepared, so a little bit more practice.
More practice?
I had managed, yeah.
Yeah, and...
There was a lot of pressure because there were already some balls inside. And
Yeah, so what I'm going to advise is that those guys are going to write a book about it, so maybe you buy their book, read it, and next time All right, everyone, can you give a round of applause to everyone for being such good sports? Okay, so the point of the bucket is, it's called the privilege bucket because in reality the privileges might be a promotion, or they might be being on a board, or they might be a new job, but sometimes we don't necessarily see the barriers they are to everyone having access to it at the same time. And some people are just literally closer to the bucket, closer to the systems, which mean they can succeed. And in this room, it's pretty obvious that how far everyone is away. But in other situations, it's not necessarily that obvious that some people just don't have the same privileges. Now, on giving everyone a voice, sometimes that means speaking up, especially if you are in an underrepresented group. Sometimes that means shutting up and letting other people talk. And a lot of the time that also means advocating for others, especially if you are in the position of power, or if you are the people who get the ball in the bucket and we want to hear from you, we want to listen to you, then advocate for people who perhaps aren't in that position to be heard. And habit 6 is about acknowledging the biases that we just fundamentally as human beings suffer from. And we have all sorts of studies. We have studies that say, teachers will give better grades to good-looking students. We have studies that say employees will hire men, they'll pick CVs just based on the name being male. We have studies that say commit requests will be put on GitHub just if they don't think the person is female. So we fundamentally have lots of these, what they call unconscious biases. And so it's really important to admit that they are there and acknowledge them. And one particular one I like as well is something psychologists call the fundamental attribution error. So the study goes that they take two sets of basketball players, and they're both equally good, and they get set A to play in a well-lit gym, and set B are playing in a dark gym, so they're throwing the basket and seeing how many hoops they score. And they ask people, well, which group is better? The ones playing, group A or group B? And they don't highlight anything about the environment. And what do you think? What do you think people say about which group is better? They'll say the group A is better because they can see them sort of scoring the baskets. But what we as humans are really bad about doing is looking at the environment and saying, well, actually, the environment isn't the same, and actually, it's not a fair comparison, so they're not actually better, but the environment needs to be adjusted. And I think sometimes that happens in tech, and people will look at it and say, oh, well, there's not many of those type of people. It's possibly because they're no good at it, rather than saying, well, actually, maybe the environment needs fixing. Maybe there's something wrong about the environment, which if we changed, then we'd have better results. Okay, so if you then acknowledge those biases, then you can go about fixing them and really investing in equality. Now, I'm not going to, again, be prescriptive about how you make this investment, but I'm going to leave you with kind of an analogy from the world of cycling. So if you're a city and you wanted to get people cycling, but you have to acknowledge that it's really dangerous going about roundabouts. In some cases, some cities will say, well, you know what, we're going to put up signs, and then we're going to tell people this is how you go round a roundabout. And, well, if you're visually impaired or, you have a small child, well, that's tough, it's just your problem. You have to navigate it, and you have to get across safely. And we consider we've done something because we've put up this sign, so the onus is now on you. But there's another way you could go about doing that. And is anyone here from Amsterdam? Anyone? No? Well, in Amsterdam, the approach to crossing a roundabout, this is a suspended bike circle in Holland. And the whole idea is if you want to get across a busy intersection, well, you're just nowhere near the cars. Anyone can cycle on that. It means that a lot more people will cycle, particularly with children on the back of their bikes. So when we're thinking about it, and our tech communities, this is what I want you to be thinking about. Well, how do we think big? It does cost money. It does require investment and resources. But that's the way you're going to get true equality and systems that work for everyone. Okay, so I'll leave it there. These are your 7 habits for highly diverse communities. In your new role as diversity champions, I hope you can find a way to take those to your communities, find ways to make it better. And in fact, we're going to carry on the discussion at the BOF we're having tonight, so that's at 8 p.m. But I'm also happy to just open up the floor to any questions and any thoughts people have specifically about the Eclipse community. So thank you very much. Okay, are there any questions for now, comments? Yeah. What do you mean nobody will accept that? Yeah. Okay. Do you want to? Okay, go ahead.